One. Hello, everybody. It's Susan Cook with eXp Realty, and I am here today with my sponsor, Dave Gagnon, former Director of Growth and eXp Icon recruiter, anyway, with a massive downline. He's going to share with us today some of the, the 5 pillars of wealth building in eXp Realty. Hi, Dave.
Hey,
Thank
Susan,
you
how are
so
you?
much for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started with eXp Realty?
Sure. You know, I got a phone call. He wanted to share the concepts of what was happening with eXp. And I was with my previous brokerage, and I had been there 7 years and really loved everything that I was doing. I thought it was absolutely the best model in the industry, and I really wasn't very open-minded. And so I said, thank you so much for the call. I really appreciate it, but I'm not interested in making a change. And he was very polite, and we said goodbye, and that was the end of it. And then 6 months later, I got another phone call from the same gentleman, and we talked a little bit, and I said, look, it's 6 months. I'm still happy. I'm still not looking to make a change. And he said, well, what would you say to someone who was saying no to a really good opportunity where you are? And I said, well, it would be irresponsible to yourself to say no to something without fully understanding the opportunity. And he said, okay, that. All right. And I'm like, okay, I should at least understand what I'm saying no to before I say no. And so I agreed to a 15-minute conversation at a coffee shop. And so this was on a Friday. I met him Sunday night at a coffee shop for 15 minutes. That was my plan. It turned into 2.5 hours. And really, we talked about the 5 pillars and why it's so compelling to so many agents and brokers, depending where they are in their career. And once I understood it, I mean, my world was turned around, and I made a changeover very quickly. And I've been here, I think, about 5.5 years now, and it's been the best ride of my professional life, and it's been the most rewarding, both personally, professionally, and thirdly, financially, that I've ever had. I've always worked hard my entire life. This is the first time I feel that I'm being paid really what I'm worth.
Wow. Well, that, parts of your story kind of sound familiar, since you called me consistently and hit me up on Facebook for 3 years before I finally would sit down with you. Now, we were in different states, but once I sat down with you and I understood fully what you were trying to tell me, it was like a no-brainer. I had to do that for my family, for my future, for any legacy that I might want to leave to care for me, and wealth, and build some wealth outside of the transaction. I immediately saw that. So why don't you explain to us, you mentioned the 5 pillars. So why don't you explain to us what the 5 pillars are?
Sure. Yeah. So the 5 pillars, really, it's like a Davism, right? It's like, I think these are the 5 major conversations to have with people. And for some people, all 5 ring true. For some, one of them is really the thing that motivates them to make a change. But I think we need to talk about all 5 pillars equally until we know what's going to have the greatest impact on someone's career and their life. And so the 5 pillars are technology, education, the financial model, the equity model, and the revenue share model. So I always start with technology, because most agents that I talk to, right, I really think there's just a few different perspectives that people come from with technology. Either they understand it and they're using it and they're having success with it, or they've heard about it, they've been to a presentation, they haven't executed on it because it's expensive. or maybe they have it and they haven't figured out how to use it and the training's not very good, or they don't even know that it's an that are the basics. Having people to talk to is where it starts, right? So we have the people who know us, like us, and trust us. And then to build our business, we need to build relationships with people over time. And one of the fastest ways to do that is with technology, right? Learning social media and those kind of things. But there's a lot of things that you can do to get in front of the people that are looking for real estate and need help, right? So if I'm talking to someone and they're using a program, and I won't get into any other names with competitors and that kind of stuff, but you know, a lot of the tools out there are like $500 a month to $1,500 a month before you even start doing any marketing. And so in our system, we use a platform called KV Core, and I use the team platform. It works fantastic. I think if it's not the best in the industry, it's got to be right there with the top three, because it's just powerful stuff. And so every agent who comes to EXP, they get this KV Core platform, and it's part of the deal. And so if they were spending $500 a month somewhere else, they just freed up $6,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so if they're paying for marketing, they should, you know, be able to do the math and figure out what it's costing them per lead or per sale. And then I do the math with them to figure out how many more sales would they have if they had an extra $6,000 in marketing.
Yeah.
Right. And so for some people, just saving that $6,000 and using it to get more business is the reason why they come over. I've even brought people over who were using conversion. And once they were done with their contract, maybe they still had 3 months left, or, you know, 6 months or something like that. Once they came over, they could just convert it over to in our platform and move all of their leads over and just stop paying that monthly fee, right? And then for the agents who don't understand the power of the marketing, I'll just open up my KV Core. I'll show them the back end. I'll show them that we're generating, you know, 3-4 leads a day based on what we're doing. And then I can tell them stories about folks that are in our group that I know their stories of what they're doing for lead gen and how they've, you know, added to their business. And so that's powerful stuff. So for anyone that I'm talking to that isn't using technology or is using technology that may be overpaying for it, I want to make sure I have a good conversation with them around that. Pillar number 2 is the educational side. And so, you know, at my old company, I was doing 90% of the training. Just because I came here doesn't mean I forgot anything, right? I still know that stuff. And we've attracted so many people that know the industry very well that the training is really, I think, second to none. We'll talk about, when we talk about equity, we'll talk about icons, right? But icons are people who are doing really good volume, right? And they're well known, they're doing good things, they're willing to give back. And we just added a program a few months ago, iConversations, right? So it's the icon agents sharing best practices, tactics, strategies, those kind of things. And so it's, you know, at my old company, you would go to these conventions a couple times a year and you would scramble from room to room to room and take a notebook full of notes on all the things that everyone was doing. And then you would try over the next 6 months to implement as many of those things as you could. And what I found in most of those things, people were telling you the framework of what they were doing, but not really getting into the nuts and bolts of it. And so with us, with the technology that we're using to do our education, it's really like going to a convention every day. Every day. Right? So instead of going, you know, trying to fit in 3 days of panels, you just plug into what you need today, learn it, implement it, master it, plug into the next thing, and just keep it moving. So I think it's easier to take education and implement it. And so whether someone is looking to be, you know, how to get going in real estate, and maybe they need a mentor or a coach, That's up to the people who want to be mentors and coaches. If someone is running a team and they want to learn how to run it more efficiently or how to get more dynamic with it, expand over a broader area, we have those kind of training pieces. Whether someone wants to focus on, work in a farm. I just did a Icon interview this morning, and they do 20 to 30% in the farms that they work, right? And that they're driving 65 sales a year off of that. That's strong stuff. And if you have people like that sharing what they're doing, they're sharing with everybody and not holding anything back. So I think there's a lot of power in all of that with the training and the collaboration. The third pillar that I like to talk about is the financial model and how that works. And, there are some brokerages that try to provide low cost, right? So there's an old saying, in the absence of value, cost is always a problem. But there are some people trying to run a brokerage just based on how cheap can they run it. And there are some agents that are attracted to that kind of thing. What we've done is we've taken a fair number and we've broken it into two major elements: what comes into the company and what gets shared with the people building the company. And so for us, we have a very high split. It's an 80-20 split, and there's no royalty in that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really an 80-20, and not all models are created equal. My old company, I was always told that I was to tell everyone it's a 70-30 split and don't get into the 6% a whole lot. But when the agents got their first check for 64%, then you always had to talk about it. And I was always uncomfortable with that. So 80-20 is 80-20, which is significantly more than what most people are getting. But when you're a big producer and you've been in the industry for a while, you learn that if you go to your broker and you stomp your feet and you threaten to leave, they'll give you a higher split than what everyone else is getting. And so sometimes people talk about, well, I got a split that good or maybe better. Well, we have this other component called a cap, which means once you've paid in a number, for us it's 16,000, you then go on the 100% plan. So, if I'm talking to a big producer and they're doing 300,000 of gross commission and they're on a 90-10, I'm on a 90-10, but they're paying 30,000, right? Here they would pay 16. And if they're in one of those old-fashioned franchise type models, they're paying that royalty, and in most of them it never goes away, right? So it goes on forever. So I think if someone takes the entire financial package and they look at everything that they're paying, and then through the other things look at what they're getting back, we're really the best value in the industry. And so again, with that, I try not to be too general with it, because if I'm talking to someone who is learning the business and they're not hitting all of their goals yet, the 80% really is the most important thing, because they're getting more in every paycheck, which means they have more money to run their business or to support their family. If someone is cranking at a very high level, they're hitting their goals, they're hitting their metrics, it's not about the 80-20, the split doesn't matter. What really matters is how much am I paying in totality. And if I can save someone, let's say it's only $5,000. If I save them $5,000, the question I ask them, Susan, is what are you doing today to generate business? And what's your average cost of sale? So let's say their average cost of sale is $500, right? That's whether they're doing lead gen or Facebook marketing, or they're doing a high touch farm or any of those kind of things, right? There's some cost of time, effort, material, coaching platform, whatever it is, there's some cost associated with generating those sales. And I think it typically works out to be about 10% of the commission, right? So if the average commission, let's say, is $5,000, average cost of sale would be about $500. So if I can free up $5,000 for someone and they put it right back where they know how it works, not even learning a new system, they can generate 10 more sales a year. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Right. And so if it's 10 more sales a year and the average commission is $5,000, that's $50,000 of gross commission. They're capped. They're keeping most of that money. And now what are you going to do with that? Are you going to improve your quality of life? Are you going to get out of debt? Are you going to generate more leads? You're going to plan better for retirement, whatever it is. But now you have real money to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that part of the conversation, might be a half hour or 45-minute conversation, but I think that has an awful lot of power to it, because you're really peeling it back to find out where the greatest impact in someone's life is. When we get to talking about the market, a lot of people have been saying for a couple of years now, we're due for a downturn, right? There's a shift coming in the market, and no one can predict when it is. It may be happening now in some places. It might be 3 years out. But what I know is this: if I have zero debt and the shift is happening tomorrow, I'm in a better position to serve my clients than someone who's just barely living on the edge today and then there's a shift.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so if I can free up some money, if they can get that invested, do more business, they can get debt free and have options.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I talk about with the financial model. And I think that part's powerful. And so everything we talked about so far is the same kind of stuff that's been talked about since brokerage started.
Mm-hmm.
It's what do I pay and what do I get? And there's, different flavor with every model that's out there. The next two things I'm going to talk about are really game changers. I think these are huge shifts in the industry that will make dramatic differences in people's lives. So the first is the equity model. And so for us, there's 3 separate conversations to have around the equity bonuses that are here. We have equity awards. Mm-hmm. We have a stock purchase program, and we have icon bonuses. And so I'm going to start with the awards first. And so if an agent is doing a good job, they're doing transactions, right? Someone comes here, they do their first transaction every year, they're getting a stock award. In the old company, we didn't even do plaques. In the company I was at before, if you did really well, you got a plaque. Well, the first big plaque I got, I nailed on the wall behind my desk, and I wanted to make sure that anyone who came into my office saw my big plaque. No one looked at it. They didn't care. I ended up with a box of plaques that I just ended up, whenever I moved, I just moved the box of plaques. I didn't put them back up on the wall. And if I tried to sell those plaques today, they're not worth anything, right?
Yeah.
So if I get a little bit of stock for just doing my job, I'm getting equity. I'm getting equity in a company. And so if I look at, what the equity awards are and what they're trading at today, it's worked out to be a pretty cool incentive. And then if someone does enough business where they're a capper, meaning they would pay in the $16,000, there's another equity bonus. And then, you know how it is. You're out there, you're doing a deal. And some agents are really tough to do deals with, right? And it's like, boy, if I get through this transaction, I never want to talk to this person again. But there's a lot of people that are amazing people, right? And they're fun, they're smart, they're great negotiators. They represent their clients well. And if you could, you would want to be in business with them. And so we have a mechanic that, I had the pleasure of meeting you, and then staying in touch with you for 3 years, and you finally come over and you do your deal. You're getting a bonus, and the company's going to give me a stock bonus for having the relationship with you until the time where you decide to come over, right? And so we have 3 different awards: first deal, capping, and attraction. And then we get into a stock purchase program. And so agents can, if they want to, put in 5% of their gross commission and purchase EXPI stock at a 20% discount. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know if the stock's going to go up. I don't know if it's going to go down. But if I can put money in and get a 20% discount off of what it's trading on, that's a pretty good incentive. Right? Mm-hmm. So the company doesn't have to go out and sell equity to some random investor. It's like, no, we're going to fundraise. We're going to offer this out to our agents who are producing. And so if you look at how that's worked out for some people, it's pretty cool. And then the third thing is this Icon bonus program. And we've been doing this, I think now it's our 4th year. And the way it works is for people who are iconic, right? Someone who does a lot of volume, people know them, like them, and trust them. I call them head turners, right? If someone comes in and you know who these people are in your local market, right? It's like, oh boy, if that person went there, I gotta listen to it, right? Because it must be really, really good. And so we have this icon bonus to help attract them over. And so, so if someone's an icon, that means they've capped and they've paid in at least $5,000 of capped transaction fees. And the way we do that is once you're capped, it's $250 per deal for 20 deals, and then it drops to $75 after that. So if someone's done 20 deals at $250, it's $5,000 that they've paid in. That's going to trigger a $16,000 stock award. And they need to give back 1 hour per month, right? So we have this really cool cloud campus, and we have 15 or 20 hours of training in there every week. And part of it is these high producing agents giving back, right? What's their secret recipe? What's their special sauce? What are they doing to do more production than the average person? And they're sharing openly. Well, they're being compensated for that too, because they're icons, right? And so, if you look at how that's worked out for people over the last 4 years, it's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And so when I talk to someone, it's like, well, how long have you been in the business? Well, I've been in 10 years. Great. Are you doing well? Yeah, I'm the top 2 agents in my office all the time. It's like, good. Are you helping your broker build a good business? Well, yeah, because I do 20% of all the volume in the office. It's like, well, how much equity do you have in that business? It's none. And so building equity is huge. I think the average realtor, according to NAR, is like 56 or 57. Most people have not put aside any real money since going into real estate. They might have had a 401k before. They might have been putting into an IRA, but most people don't have that kind of mechanic. And so being able to have stock awards, a stock purchase program, and the opportunity for the icon bonus, I think that helps an awful lot of people. And then the 5th pillar is a revenue share model. And so I know there's some out there that I've looked at, and they look kind of cool. There's just no one making any real money with them. And then there's some that are driven off of profit instead of revenue. And so if you're doing that kind of model and the office isn't very profitable, or they play games as where they put people in what month, right? You could have someone doing something you're not making a lot of money or any money on. And so any system that can be played with, I think, just isn't as good. Ours is very straightforward. It's off the gross. And so, so for example, if you were someone that I brought in directly and you go close a deal, let's say a $10,000 commission, I'm going to get 3.5% of that. And it's going to happen every deal until you cap, right? I don't have to worry about what month it is. I don't have to worry about whether, the company is more or less profitable on a monthly basis, because the company has already set it aside as an item to be paid. It's already baked in. And so it's not like, ooh, I hope we make money so we can pay something. It's like, nope, every dollar that comes in gets split this way. And so I think that's very cool. And, I know you asked me to share a little bit of my own story. And, my first year, I attracted 3 people to the company, right? I don't think that's very hard to do. I had a full-time job, right? Just like most agents have a full-time job servicing their clients. And my second year, I only added 1 more personal, and I started helping my people grow a little bit. So I had 11, and that was kind of cool. And I started to make some pretty good money with that. And then at the end of that next year, I had 119 people. because some of my people started inviting other people, and I got better at talking to people, right? And then, you know, last year it was over 600, and now it's going even more, right? So the cool thing is I have a lot of people like you that are my partners. And if I help them build their business and I help their agents build their business, there's all that reward is built into the model. And so what we have is we have a lot of agents helping a lot of clients with great tools and training and education, and really good incentives that if they meet someone who would be a good addition, to share the story, get into conversation, answer their questions, and help them learn more about EXP, and everyone gets fairly compensated. And it's turned out to be life-changing for me and my family and for a lot of people that I'm in business with. And that's why I'm excited to do a conversation like this with you and the people that you can share it with, because I believe it's the best opportunity in the industry, and everyone should take a look at it. And if we're the right place for them today, then they should come over and work with you and work with us.
Yeah. And you touched on a couple of things that I have already experienced in EXP. And one thing that I really wanted to say about the culture of sharing that we have in our company, I have already understood in workplace and in the cloud, you know, and aligned myself with people outside of our RevShare group in our local area, that, you know, have openly shared classes and strategies, and just offering friendship as well, you know, and we're building, you know, we're collaborating and building a company, you know, and it really does feel like you're a part of something that's just going to be huge, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, so you never want to put projections out there and that kind of stuff, right? But I can talk a little bit about history because I've been here for a while. Mm-hmm. So when I came over, I was agent number 272. And yeah, and we were in 18 states. And in most of those states, we didn't have two agents to rub together, right? And if we did, we didn't have two agents to rub together in an MLS, right? And so I didn't come over and join this big, powerful thing that was chugging along. It wasn't an infant. It was probably in its toddler stage, right? And you know, every week we were collaborating with staff and agents and brokers. You know, where are we today? Where do we want to be? How do we make it better? And, you know, we went from 272 to like 465. Then the next year, 864. And then the next year we had a big jump, right? I think today, and you know, this video might be out there for a while, so you got to check it against the original date. But I think we're around 14,000 agents today, and so that's just 5.5 years. And you know, no prediction on where the year is going to end or that kind of stuff. But we've been growing. We've been doubling in size like every 7 months in the past. And in my little group, it's been running about that same rate. And so it's incredible. And the reality of it is we are attracting the same rate of leaders today as we were in the past. And so the growth rate is being sustained. So for example, when I started talking to agents and sharing it, I was the only one telling the story. And then once I had a couple of folks that I was in business with and they were telling the story and they got better at it, they were growing at the same rate that I used to be growing at. And so the whole organization, so it wasn't just, you know, stymied on me. It wasn't just transactional. You know, when I talk to agents, I talk about getting off the hamster wheel. And, you know, we get into real estate and we want to serve our clients and we want to serve them at a high level. And all of that is great. But at some point, you max out on how many transactions you can physically do, right? And then if you've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you know, if you don't do the same number of transactions every year, you go back to zero. And so what can you build in for a baseline? And that's where revenue share and stock really play in. If someone is acquiring stock, whether it's through awards, bonuses, or stock purchase program, over time, that can give you a good solid base. If you have revenue share and it means an extra $500 a month, right? That might be an extra sale every year you don't have to do. It gives you a buffer. For some folks that are doing really well, it's more substantial, right? So I know people that never have to sell another piece again if they don't want to. They're still doing it because they still love real estate. But imagine if you could do real estate at the same pace you're doing it today, but be more selective on your clients, right? Have you ever served a client where you're like, oh my goodness, right? If I didn't need the deal, I would not work with this customer, right? Not all of them can be fair and reasonable.
I told a client yesterday, a coaching client, that just like they could fire a buyer client, they could fire a listing. If they're not following your advice, you're right. It gives you a lot of freedom.
Absolutely.
And that's something that a lot of real estate agents don't quite understand is available to them, is the choice. You can make a choice to build something where you do have that freedom. And that's being a true business person. That's being a true business owner.
And and I love how you said that. And it comes through in all aspects, right? So like we talked about lead generation early, using the tools and those kind of things. If all you have is one buyer to work with, you'll show them as many houses as it takes, hoping that they're going to find what they want, right? If you have 10 buyers and you only have enough time to serve 4 or 5 of them at a very high level, doesn't it make sense? You're going to pick the ones that are following your advice, right? They're getting their pre-approvals. They're taking care of their debt structure. They're in the best position to get the property that they want. And they're doing the worksheets that you're asking them to do on what they need to have and what they want to have, and they have realistic expectations, right? And so if I have more leads, I have better clients. If I have better clients, I have better transactions. If I have some investments put away, I have more flexibility. If I have some revenue share, I have more flexibility. And so I think it all ties together.
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, Dave, you have really explained this very completely. And I certainly appreciate your time and helping me understand it a little bit better. I know I've been here for 6 months, but it's still so much to take in. And I've just been taking it at little bitty chunks. And I've just barely gotten through the technology part now, where I'm able to share it with my coaching clients and also the people that I'm bringing into the company. Is there anything you want to add before we wind this up?
So the last thing I would say is this, right? So for you and I started talking 3 years before we really had a really good sit down with a long conversation with all of your concerns, with all of your thoughts open and on the table. And once we're able to work through that, the path was really clear, right? For me, it was 6 months between saying no and then really, really understanding it. I think any opportunity is easy to say no to when you don't know what it's really about. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable that if it's really, really good, I might have to make a tough decision. So what I encourage people to do is be a good business person and put the most important people first. And I think the most important people are the people that you have your family around, right? And so, I liked my broker. I liked the people that I hung around with, but I love my family, right? And so the business opportunity really has allowed for me to do amazing things with my family. over the last few years, and the plans that we have in the future are, I think, absolutely amazing. And not only how I can impact my adult children, but my grandbabies. We just brought my third grandbaby into the world. She's now 2 months old, and I love and adore her. And I can be the best grandpa ever because I have more options, right? And the reason why I have more options is I agreed to do full due diligence to really find out what it was about, to really put all of my concerns on the table, to hear what the answers were and do my due diligence against them. And then it made it very easy to make my decision. And same thing with you. And I think for everyone who's come here, it's been the same kind of process, right? And I could go down the list of partners that I have, and almost every single one of them said no, and then they were willing to listen, and then they did their due diligence, and then they said yes. The difference, the variation is how much time and distance is there between, I'm not interested to really digging into it and doing their due diligence. So I challenge anyone who's watching the video, really dig into it, really understand it, say everything that's on your mind, and really do your due diligence on the answers. And I think you'll come out at the same place that many of us have, and it will be a paradigm shift in your career, in what you can do to service your clients, and the difference that it'll make in your life, and really help you build something that's outside of the old-fashioned model that's been the same way for 50 years. The last big change we had was 30 years ago, and that model is now 30 years old. This is the next change. This is the thing that agents are coming to. So dig into it, really understand it. I do a session every week, or almost every week. I mean, if it's not a vacation week or something, but I do a session every week. So if you're talking to someone who's already in the company and you have questions that they don't have the answers, come into that session. It's an open session in our cloud office, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that anyone has about the company. And like I said, if you ask enough questions, I think you'll be here.
That's right. All right, David, thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody that's made comments and joined us here, and look forward on YouTube and on Facebook.
All right. Have a great day. All right. Bye-bye.